I wanted to talk for a moment about the reverse discard that a narcissist will sometimes do. I previously said that all narcissistic relationships with a narcissist or someone with highly narcissistic tendencies and traits will end in one of three ways. And I said one, they discard you, and I sort of just left that as side one, and then the two as if the second one is if you leave them, you get the smear campaign, or in very extreme cases, you'll get extreme violence and or like murder, like what happened to poor Gabby Petito. um that's if hoovering you doesn't work. But if you're kind of looking at this as like a tree with branches, and the one is the discard, if they discard you, that's one way that these relationships can end. I forgot to mention that within the discard, what you'll often see is something called a reverse discard. And this is really important for understanding how narcissists function. So remember, narcissists like to be looked at as grand and powerful and wonderful and good and beyond a reproach, right? They want to be seen as someone with high ethics and values, where they have none of that, right? They're manipulative, they have no values, they're selfish, self-driven, transactional people, malicious, vengeful, all those things. So what they sometimes will do, though, is a reverse discard. And that is so that they can still maintain their image of being the bigger and better person and get rid of their partner who they no longer are getting the supply they want from. And they will often do this. This is when I've seen it most from talking to people and just in my own experience with a narcissist, whenever it is the mother of their children. So if they're married to somebody and they have kids with them, they don't want to be the one to break up that family, because that would make them look imperfect and bad. And that wouldn't make them look like, the bigger than life and beyond reproach person that they want everyone to see them as. And so they'll do a reverse discard. And how this works is they'll start to be mean and cruel and calculating, and they'll start to deactivate, they'll start to distance themselves from their partner, they'll start to do purposely mean, hurtful things to their partner. And they do that for so long, and their partner, who likely has an anxious attachment style, will try to repair the relationship, try to work on it, try to move toward them, try. And the narcissist will do intermittent reinforcement. They might show a little bit of love, a little bit of kindness here and there, but generally they will push them away through cold, mean, calculating things. And now in hindsight, I can see how my narcissist did this with his first wife, the mother of his children. So he told me, and he didn't tell me this all at once, or else it maybe would have clicked what he was doing. But just now looking back and reflecting on our, 5.5-year relationship, there are certain things he told me about that relationship. One, he told me that how it ended is she finally, after years of him being emotionally, unavailable to her, physically unfaithful to her, that sort of thing, she eventually left him, and she left him for the minister of the church's daughter. So she was, in a heterosexual relationship with him and left him for a lesbian relationship. And when I asked him when we first met, how did that make you feel? That must have made you feel really bad that, she cheated on you and left you for the minister's daughter, me not knowing the full picture of what happened. And I was shocked when he said, it was the happiest day of my life. And then throughout our relationship, he told me bits and pieces of how his relationship with her worked. And so he said that quickly after they were married, he watched this Seinfeld episode where George's fiance dies licking the envelopes for their wedding invitations. And because George, I think, was cheap or something and didn't get high quality wedding invitations, and the glue, the adhesive was somehow toxic or something, and it caused her to die. And George's reaction was relief and happiness, right? It was not sadness. It wasn't what you'd expect. And my narcissistic ex said he watched that episode and was secretly hoping that something like that happened to his first wife. And throughout their relationship together, he again didn't want to look like the one that left her. So for years, he engaged in, he basically emotionally abandoned her and physically abandoned her. So he did have affairs and cheated on her, particularly whenever she was, for her graduate work, doing a study abroad in Africa, somewhere in Africa. He had a lengthy affair with somebody who he then rekindled, actually, whenever, years later, whenever she finally left him. And he told me that he would do things like she would want to have sex with him, intimate relations with him, and he would deny her that, didn't want to have any sort of dealings with her in that way. But he would lay in bed and, masturbate to porn. And she would wake up and see that and just cry because it was so hurtful to her. And he would just, work long hours, not care about her emotional needs, disengage. He was emotionally disengaged. He was emotionally left the relationship. And he did things, a lot of different things, a lot of different tactics to push her away until eventually, she was, after years of being invalidated and not feeling worthy and cheated on and not having any sort of emotional connection, she left him. She did finally leave him. And in turn, he acted like this wonderful, noble person who was like, I support her and I just want her to be happy. And I want us to maintain this nice, healthy relationship for our kids. And everyone in my church was like, oh, he's such a wonderful man. He loved his family more than he cared about how hurt he was that his wife left him and cheated on him. And, she cheated on him and ruined that marriage. And he was just so kind and supportive to her and never says a bad word about her. And that's exactly the narrative he wanted to push, so that everyone felt bad for him, like he was the victim, and everyone felt like he was the hero who supported his wife finding out that she was queer. And we'd go to a very, queer-friendly church. And so, this was perfect for him. It was perfect for him to be in this position. It gave him such a narcissistic rush, a sense of, validation. And then he would do things which was really interesting, and I'll talk more about this, but he was quick to join this sort of like men's group, right? And so he would talk about his relationship in this men's group. And he did the same thing after me and him broke up as well. He and I broke up. And the narrative he told about me was quite different than the narrative he told about her, because there were two different things that happened there. But in order to be seen as this, noble, wonderful man, he would talk about how much he cared for her and he wishes that he could have been better to her and maybe then she wouldn't have left him, and how hard it was for him and how deeply he felt for her. And then I even heard rumors, about how, she moved his first wife, that she moved women into the house whenever they were still together. And he, it hurt him so bad. That never happened. That never happened. She did not move people into the house. She tried to repair that relationship. She tried to love him. She tried to make him love her. And he was checked out of that relationship. But he told these stories. He fed these little bits of info to his flying monkeys, who he didn't use to harm her, because his motivation was different with her than with me. But he used it to paint this story that he was just such a noble and kind and, generous and big person. And that is what you'll often see whenever, especially, they have to like co-parent with this person, or they have to in some way, their friend groups are intertwined or their social circles are intertwined. Rather than being looked like the bad person and doing an all right then smear campaign on them, what they'll do is they'll do a reverse discard, get them to leave, their partner to leave them, and so that they can look like the bigger, better person, and their partner looks like the one who was unfaithful and cheated on them and were just awful.